Welcome back to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. I'm your mortgage broker host, Taylor Atkinson.
And I'm your real estate agent host, Matt Glenn. How'd your triathlon, how'd the cherry blossom go for you?
It was a lot of fun, man. Those events are awesome. I guarantee I'm probably the only person that jumped in the pool without his goggles on.
On purpose? You did?
No, not on purpose. They were still on my head. I was one of the last guys to enter the pool. You know, you choose your time so you don't like delay everyone in the pool because you're swimming like a snake formation.
Yeah.
I was chatting to a guy about trying to figure out how the clock worked. And then I jumped in and my first couple little head bobs, I'm like, I can't see a freaking thing in here.
So you didn't even notice when you hit the water? It took you a while to figure it out?
It took me about, 5 to 10 seconds. And then I put my goggles on. And then after that, I was off, man. I was killing it.
Nice. Good for you. Did you do pretty well?
I mean,
yeah,
that's relative. I did finish. Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. Emily crushed it as well. So it was a good day. The weather was nice and the fans were out supporting. So
nice. Yeah, that was awesome to see you do that.
Okay. And this is your last week to vote for Kelowna Now. So like we said, we are in the voting round. Thank you very much for nominating us. If you go down to media, best local podcast, click Real Estate Podcast to help us out.
Yeah, we can vote till the 18th. By the time this gets released, I think there'll be like 4 or 5 days left to vote. Yeah, so far I've seen a lot of people posting that they did vote for us and sending me messages. So love to see that. We would love to win this category. I think we will. I think we got a shot.
Yeah.
Your help.
Do we get maybe a free lunch out of it or something? I don't know. A t-shirt?
Whatever we get, even if it's just a pat on the back from each other, I'm happy with
Yeah. If we don't win, I am not giving you that.
Fair enough.
Okay, leading into today's show, awesome show, pretty relevant with talking about short-term rental legislation. So we had on Orion Rodgers from Property Rights BC. They are the organization that fundraised, I want to say around $150,000 for a legal action lawsuit against the provincial government. They are going to court in the next couple of months. So it's actually happening probably quicker than I anticipated.
Yep.
But he kind of ran us through, his origin story, why he is, fighting this battle. And yeah, he's a pretty good voice to have. So,
and their opinions seem like super reasonable, what they're asking for. They agree with a lot of things that have been happening, like the whole movement does. Well, I don't know about the whole movement, but this lawsuit does, and Ryan specifically. But what do they want? They want an exemption of the
principal residence and non-conforming suites. And they seem to be going about it the right way. Like they're actually going and meeting face-to-face with politicians, Ravi and Eby. They're shaking hands and just trying to unify the voice. So yeah, we would love to have him back on in the future, but yeah, this is kind of just the initial, hey, this is our organization. This is what we're doing. If you want to be part of it, go to their website. You can sign up for their newsletter. You can become a member. You can make a donation. So yeah, definitely a good organization to have.
Yeah, it's the Property Rights Association. So like right now they're fighting the short-term rentals at the provincial level and also at the municipal level, he was saying. But then that's just the issue of the day today. So like they're going to be fighting for your rights in the future as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a valuable guy to connect with.
Yeah.
And then this show and every other show, we are sponsored by Century 21. So thank you for that, guys.
Century 21 Assurance Realty, the best brokerage in the Okanagan. From my own experience, also my opinion, obviously, and just from what I've seen, it's a great place to be. Love for you to join us.
Give them a shout out on Kelowna Now as well.
Yes, definitely do that. But vote for us first. Vote for us at the same time. Enjoy the show, you guys.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Orion Rodgers, president of Property Rights Association BC. How are you doing today?
Yeah, long time coming having you on here.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we caught some of your episodes in the beginning, right? Amanda and Dina and stuff like that. And so, it's great to just chat about this. And here we are past this May 1st threshold already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So has anything changed like in the last few days over that?
No, it's very of course things have changed, right? Short-term rental is now restricted across the province. Yeah. I mean, that is what has changed. If you go and search for a short-term rental on any of the platforms, you will see next to none, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can just start with, we like to connect our guests to our listener with what's your perfect Friday look like? What do you kind of do? What's your role? And leading into the weekend, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, I mean, father of two, I got a 7 and 9-year-old. So Fridays are kind of that end of the week routine is winding down, picking up the kids. Weather's nice. We just get out and have some fun right after school, go play some sports or even go to like the arcade and play some video games. And then Friday's movie night for our family.
Oh, wow.
We don't have Blockbuster anymore, right? We can't go get a movie. So we try and like pick a movie as a family and sit down and enjoy it, put our phones away. I think that's, I'm really passionate about that right now. It's just keep the screens out of it in the evenings. And yeah, that's it.
Put down your phone and focus on the TV.
Oh, yeah.
I love that though, man.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah, I mean, focus on your family, right? So, make popcorn and include the kids. They're 7 and 9 now, right? And they're aware.
I think that's awesome. That's fantastic.
So that's a passion for me, right? Kind of like have these device-free moments. And then that spills into the weekend. That sets the weekend out, right? And the weekend is sports in the mornings and getting out and having fun. And, we're West Coasters, right? Like we need to be rain or shine outdoors doing something. So I think it's super important.
Yeah, I love that. That brings me back to my childhood, the TGIF, man, going to get some pizza. And
TGIF, yes.
Oh, I'm born in 84, I remember a time before the screen. I grew up on the Gulf Islands here. So riding a bike across the Gulf Islands, go see your friends, calling, have to talk to their parents.
Yeah, hi, mister, is my friend home?
Yeah.
We had to do that all the time. That would never happen nowadays. Yeah. I wasn't even allowed inside until it was dark. Like if it was sunny out, I wasn't allowed to play inside.
I have locked my kids outside until it's time to come. So I'm ready for them to come in.
I love it. Let's jump right into it, Ryan. So is there anything about this short-term legislation that you'd like?
Definitely. You know what? I think, and I've said this from the beginning, 80 to 90% of this legislation is great. Yeah. An industry needs regulation. You got the real estate industry has the BC Real Estate Association. There's self-governing bodies there. Pretty much every industry has some sort of self-governing body. Unfortunately, we didn't have that in short-term rentals. It was just left up to municipalities to figure out a way through this. And then what we've seen is, hotel industry kind of deciding to regulate it. Take the city of Victoria and the city of Kelowna, for example. Very strict licensing regimes, right? Bylaw enforcement, ticketing. The province essentially just mimicked what they had, but they went a step further and they got more aggressive with the legal non-conforming and, not honoring zonings like Playa del Sol and these commercially zoned properties. Legal non-conforming in Victoria, amended the Local Government Act to take that out. And so I think if they had avoided those two pieces, we probably wouldn't have seen as much pushback for sure. It would have just been accepted. And the people that had a business license that were operating lawfully and legally, they would have been happy. They would say, great. You're going after the bad people. You're going after the bad apples. You've recognized that my ticket here is a ticket to operate, right?
Yeah.
And so what's your role specifically? Like, I guess you were a property manager, owner prior to this. And then obviously once this all happened, were you kind of taking the lead on starting this association, or what's your position exactly?
Yeah. And you nailed it. I started with my own property. I still only own one, and a friend, like yourself, I was actually a mortgage broker, decided to, say, hey, I've got a secondary property. How's your short-term rental stuff going? Took it on and started to amass that, created a company, Coast and Coast Vacation Rentals with my wife. And when this came in, we already got through the pandemic, which was unprecedented hard times for tourism. That wasn't very long ago of, seeing cancellations after cancellations and just full disruption to the industry. And so we managed to get through that and grew our business. We've always grown it lawfully. We've always hosted guests or taken on clients with, the zoning or requirements to operate. And so when this happened, we knew there was going to be rumblings of it happening. We actually, as managers here in Victoria, had already kind of had a meeting set up to get together and chat about this stuff that was coming. And then it came fast, heavy, and strong.
Yeah.
And, there was 10 managers in Victoria got together, and about 4 to 6 of them kind of subgrouped after that. And we're like, what do we need to challenge this? Why is the industry just kind of being walked over? Why does nobody care? And we recognize it's because there was no unified message, unified voice, circle back to that association or self-governing body of an industry. This one didn't have it. So we said, let's create an association. We started with property rights because we recognized that this is what the trample was on a little bit. I do think at some point it will evolve into something else, right? I'd like to see a BC Short-Term Rental Association, which, we've put the wheels in motion for that because I think that will be a more recognized brand. And 8 directors total created this entity. And we all just recognized everyone has a different strength in this. I don't like to be on camera, but I like to connect with people. That's my superpower, right?
Nice.
And I got a team that love data. They just love crunching numbers and combing through data. And out of that, we called each other the kind of needle movers, and we created this association, registered it, member funded, everything above board so it would be actually recognized, and then create that unified message so we can go to politicians and they say, oh, it's just one group speaking to us, representing a membership, right? I think so far it's been successful, in being recognized.
And you guys have started the legal action on this pretty early as well. Was that you that kind of were the front runner for that then?
Yeah, what we did was, we just heard from affected people, just like any union, any association, any, group. When you have enough members that are affected by this, they're talking about, what can we do? I want to support something. I don't believe this is right. You start to take that together, you unpack it and look at it and say, okay, there are grounds here. You consult with the right people, right? We took a couple different legal counsels and opinions. Cox Taylor was, John Alexander, he's a well-renowned, Victoria and BC land use lawyer, said, I see an argument here. I see that the government has not recognized areas in their legislation that are directly affecting and canceling vested rights in everyday people. And so that's the challenge. We're not challenging the legislation as a whole. We're not challenging, is this good for housing, which we all believe, housing is important. What we're challenging is the fact that people that were operating lawfully, operating legally, are having their vested rights canceled. They're not being compensated for it, right?
So what is the end goal you guys are looking for? Is it specific areas of municipalities that we would see reversed or grandfathered in if they were originally zoned for it? Or is it people that had a business license operating just be allowed to continue to operate? Or like you said, compensation? Would we look for compensation for those people?
I think it's multi-tiered. The actual petition, which, I'll send you a copy if you haven't had a chance to look at it already, are attacking parts 14 and 36. Section 36 is the legal nonconforming removal, so amending the local government acts to not offer legal nonconforming protections. And part 14 is the principal residence requirement, right? And so when we look at those two pieces, those would actually alleviate across the province and allow people to then continue doing short-term rentals in the way that they were, inside of their municipal bylaws, right? So the municipal bylaws could then, again, as Mr. Kalan and EB have touted, the municipal bylaws can be more restrictive than the provincial legislation. So,
which they are in Kelowna.
Right?
Yeah.
Matt, you loosely talked about that before the show. And same in Victoria, right? So there is an ability for the legislation to be the floor. I know they call it the floor, but I like to think of it as, the ceiling, essentially. You can't go higher.
Yeah.
And to bring that down lower and lower. Now, with smart consultation amongst the cities, I think there could be nuances and carve-outs where the provincial legislation and the data sharing and all of that, right, for helping with enforcement, working together with municipal bylaws could offer a very good landscape, a healthy landscape for short-term rentals to operate without the unintended consequences. So right now, it's to remove sections 14 and 36 in short, but, we're into litigation. There could be a moment of negotiation at some point. Those parts are unknown until we arrive at those moments, which we haven't yet. Hopefully we will soon.
Yeah.
I know legal action can take forever, but is there kind of a time frame that we're anticipating to hear news on this?
Yeah, we're looking for this summer, kind of mid-June.
Okay.
Is when we should have some clear understandings. Again, can always get moved around or pushed. And so we're not hanging our hats on those dates, but we're working towards, a lot of people thought it was going to be May 1st. We were going to have an understanding. We're going to stop it, but it just doesn't work out that way, right? So, and the legal strategy continues to change as it needs to adapt.
Well, that's pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, that's just for initials. I mean, then it can get kicked down the road again, and just like any other kind of legal challenge and other litigation. So, I can speak a little bit to it and talk about the body of it, but obviously the timelines and stuff, there's just so much unknowns there.
Yeah.
And, as we cross different little mini thresholds, like we just crossed the May 1st one, we had another one that was there just kind of based on some information. We just keep updating our members as best we can.
Yeah.
And then what about challenging this could take a long time, but we do have an election coming up in the fall. Are you pushing people towards voting, obviously, but voting a specific way or specific candidates or party or have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, this is a discussion that we've been having a lot. We are entering election season very quickly.
Yeah.
You can see it, in Facebook ads and stuff like that. You're starting to see notices of, what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. And our member base will vote how they want to vote.
Yeah.
Everyone's got an opinion. We all know what opinions are like and everyone has one, right? So, and so, my stance on it is let's look at what the current government has done. Has it been successful? Has there been shortfalls? Which government could do a better job? Which government is sympathetic to this? We've seen Karen Kirkpatrick get up there in the Hansard in the legislative, just going after Ravi Kalan. But she's stepping down in a year. She's not going to run again, right? So, you've got someone from the BC United that is just driving it home. I think that's doing a great job of just bringing more public perception and helping change a narrative around what we've kind of stigmatized, and demonized here, short-term rentals, this bad term. And so when I look at the upcoming election, I see an opportunity for change. We have a majority government currently. Yeah. I would like to see it split and broken down. And if two other contenders got in, maybe they could be conversations that they vote in a block over certain topics, right? So now we have a blended government over three people, which, let's be honest, blended governments, things move slower, but you've got more voices involved in policy change, right? And again, hence why things move slower, but there's more opportunity for, little coalitions and little groupings and trying to get things through. So I'm not going to hang my hat on one party. I actually never voted much of my life up until a couple of years ago. My mom even was like, what? You care about politics?
Now you're the president of the Property Rights Association of BC.
So just to talk about that and our association. So one of the things, I recognized and we recognize as a group is about that unified message about being professional. Yeah. We started registering the association for different groups, right? So the first was the register for the Chamber of Commerce here in Victoria.
Oh yeah, nice.
Because, we're small businesses, we're small entrepreneurs. I'm Bruce here, the president of the chamber, great guy. I'm sure you guys have chatted with your chamber up in Kelowna. They're a great group, right? They're looking out for businesses, and businesses are the backbone of our economy and the society. Yep. So registered for the association. Well, one of the first events that was put on is a breakfast with Premier David Eby, which just happened last Tuesday.
Nice.
So we booked a table and coincidentally got put right in front of his podium, which was pretty good. And we got our name tag on our table, right? West Coast Association of Property Rights. Yeah. And my advocate partner, two of us, because we're of the people skills, we kind of take at the advocacy stuff. He just kind of looked at me and said, you should go talk to David. I'm like, what? What do you mean go talk to him? Because he's right there. He's talking to the chief of police. He's walking around mingling. Yeah. I said, okay. Yeah. So I walk over to him. I shake his hand. I said, hi, I'm Orion Rodgers. And he gave me that look of, I know who you are.
Nice.
You have a lawsuit against me at the moment, challenging my government. And I just looked him in the eye. I said, listen, your short-term rental policy is really affecting me. And I said, there's a group of table of folks behind me that's negatively impacting. It's going to change their lives. And he came over to our table and he went around, he shook hands and did get to meet everybody and had a conversation with one of our last fellows. And, we were able to just kind of get a little more of a direct email and, hopefully we can send some information there that maybe they weren't looking at, right? That's kind of what I get at. So, positioning the association important, not aligning with the party, but, providing information and trying to consult because we weren't consulted as an industry. Yeah. That's the focus, right? Kevin Falcon's going to be here in a couple of weeks. We might go do the same thing there and just meet him and have conversation, right? Trying to educate where we can.
What about Ravi? Are you going to try and meet him?
We've tried a lot, spoken with his chief of staff and executive assistant a few times, has no time for a meeting. I don't think Ravi is the reason this legislation is in. I think this is close to the Premier's heart. He's had a lot of stuff about housing in his career, a lot of initiatives, a lot of talk there. And I think this stems from the top. And Ravi, he's a spokesperson, right? He's a spokesperson for the Ministry of Housing. And so it's a two-prong approach, of course, right? You need to get in the door, but I do think it was stopped with Mr. Eby. And so trying to get in front of him, have conversation has always been our goal.
So do you think he actually believes that this will help affordability and help housing? Or is it more of, my voting people, I'm going to connect with them on these certain topics and it's going to be good for my campaign?
I think if he's going to increase one thing out of this policy, it's votes.
Really?
Right?
You think he's going to get more votes because of this?
Well, I think that's his goal.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a campaign run, right? And campaign runs don't start, 3 weeks before the election. They start a year before the election, right?
So I guess the question is if he thinks it's just a campaign run, what are you guys trying to communicate to him that would change his mind? I know you're trying to educate on a whole amount of different levels. In Kelowna, we're talking about, the medical industry is huge here, right? We're at the Interior Hospital, basically from Prince George to Vancouver. So we can communicate on those certain avenues that feel very powerful. But if he's just going after the polls, what do you do to change his mind other than hire a lawyer? But in your conversation with him, what do you try and get across?
I don't think anything this side of the election would be negotiated with the NDP, unfortunately, because they've hung their hat on this. I mean, the Homes for People plan started in April. I think it was released last year, right? Touting all of the big initiatives and how much money they're going to spend. And of course, this was a line item in there. which has now turned into a thing, right? And that thing is because of us. And so, provide smart data of these are the people that you're impacting. So they brought it out. And this is back to the conversation with this. When we talked about who is hurting at this table, he said, well, wasn't my intent was to hurt, you types of people, because we're not corporate investors. Everyone sitting around the table either owns one or owns a business that is servicing a number of them and has staff and employees, and they're providing for themselves and the economy. The short-term rental legislation came out, right, and was blunt, and there was enough uproar from Parksville with support of their mayor and council. Mayor O'Brien did a very good job there of being loud and, being on podcasts like this and being on discussions. And Parksville then received the language and the regulations, which is going to exempt them, right? And so the idea is to show that these other folks, where this housing is not the stock that they're really going after, like, let's be honest, we're all in real estate here. A lot of these condos are north of $500,000, right?
Easily.
They all are.
What's a mortgage right now? And $400,000 off the top of your head.
Let's go, Taylor.
$3,200.
$3,200, right?
Yeah, that's worth a referral.
Plus strata, plus taxes, plus everything else on it, right?
Yeah.
So, and then how much do you need to service that debt, right? Like, so what is your debt service ratio on that amount? So showing that legislation, you already did a carve out for one group. This other group, again, is not going to give you the housing stock you want. And all it's going to do is create pain and discomfort and put people out and really, financially devastate them, right? And these are people that saved, gosh, one of my clients is an old folk singer, and she saved, everything she possibly could with her partner. And they bought a condo to operate as a short-term rental until they retire, and then maybe one day retire it, right? Like, there's a lot of sad stories there aside from the impact, right? And so how do you get that through to them? Because I think that speaks volumes, right? And especially when it's out in the news of your legislation is hurting people.
Yeah.
Right?
I was thinking about Kelowna, like we have a few buildings coming up like Auckland Cavan that aren't even built yet, that people bought to short-term rental. Just questions how the people are going to even close, how they're going to afford it once they do close on the purchases. Like the Playa del Sol's, at least that building's running right now. You can get a tenant in there, but like these places, they have to come up with the money to buy them.
Yeah, and Aqua's sold on the premise that people were going to be able to do this, right? And that's a real tough one. And, this is where there is some language around the strata title hotel that could fit some of these bigger properties. But, there's a process that'll have to go through to get them. Of course, we're investigating that and as an association and who that could apply to. The thing with regulations is that, unfortunately, they can be changed very easily at any time, right? So,
you mean the strata regulations?
Yeah, like anything in the regulations doesn't have to go through a legislative assembly, doesn't have to be voted on.
Yeah.
The government in power can make changes on that. So, you want to circle back into the political side of things. If there was changes at the current government to come out of the majority and we had more blended thinking, and governments that could be approached that would want to speak up and make changes, we could see changes at just a regulation level that could protect or allow opportunity for short-term rentals to continue in some capacity in some buildings or some zonings or some areas, right? So again, back to the nuances too, that it can't just be blunt. We can't just say, all properties in commercial zones can be short-term rentals. Well, that opens another can of worms, right? Yeah. So we need to get a little more specific there, which the regulations are only a couple pages long.
Yeah.
Have you tried to be like super unbiased and view it from the other way? And I'm only thinking because, I live in this bit of an echo chamber as well. And all the stories that I have heard are like you. It's usually one other property that they own. Like it's their only investment. They're trying to get ahead in life, or it's a cleaning company or a management company and everyone's really struggling. And the only other story that I've seen, it was actually kind of comical. It was David Eby was doing a campaign and it was out of Vancouver, and this guy came on and he was pretty Gucci, like wearing these sunglasses. And he was like, yeah, like I really believe in this affordability and the short-term rental legislation. And, I used to live in like an apartment complex 10 blocks away from here. And then I saw this like Airbnb style property come on and, I knew that they were going to be in pain. So I swooped in and got it. And I was like, I'm actually trying to relate to this guy from his side of it, but it just seems like such a opportunist socialist, like, hey, someone's going to struggle. I'm going to maybe get a nicer place to live in because now people are kind of stuck. So do you see any of that other side of the argument? Like, have you seen it where you're like, yeah, okay, it makes sense for this specific area?
So where I don't agree with the legislation is that it says you can rent out your secondary suite additional dwelling unit, or carriage home.
You can't in Kelowna, by the way.
And so that's where we get into the restrictive municipalities. But they've set this floor or ceiling, right? And they've given that as one of the provisions. I mean, God, I remember back to being 20 years old, I rented a basement suite, like a 5-foot ceiling. You had to step down into the bathroom and you stepped up into the kitchen. And, that was cheap, really cheap, right? And we packed a few people in there. That's affordable. That's affordable accommodations, right? And so
they're taking that away.
The province is taking that away. Now, the municipalities can be more restrictive and, of course, not allow that as an option. But the province is saying, here, if you have a carriage house in your backyard, you can rent that as a short-term rental. But the $700,000 condo that's in a commercially zoned property in downtown Kelowna, that needs to go back to housing stock. So I appreciate the Premier's content creation around his ad in Vancouver. And in Vancouver was very strict. That was probably an illegal operator that the guy got shut down and he's found that place. So that's another conversation. But so I can appreciate the fact that, there is an intent there to create that. I haven't seen it. I see a lot of places for sale in Victoria that aren't in short-term rental buildings. And I keep an eye on the market all the time. There's always places up for sale, right? And there is a pretty good healthy rental market, even though, claims are 1% or lower. When you go on Facebook Marketplace, you do see a lot of places. The affordability, I think, is what it really comes down to, not necessarily the availability. And this was where we circle back into, I don't think this stock will help it. So I haven't personally seen it, Taylor. Like, I try and see it from the other side. I try and, wrap my head around, who's out there needing housing. I hear Minister Kahlon say, we have people living in RVs. We need this housing. And I don't know what he's on, but it just seems like a big disconnect there. And I feel terribly sorry for those people that live in RVs or are living in tents. I see them in my neighborhood. I'm just trying to figure out where he's tying the two together. And the only thing I can think of is it just looks good tying those two together, in a press release, right? And that's unfortunate. And that circles again back into this election year that we're in.
Have you guys had any contact with AirBNB or VRBO, the company? The reason why I ask is because I see VRBO has commercials out and they're like, rent with VRBO, where we guarantee that the homeowner is not going to be home. And then Airbnb has one where it's like, rent with an Airbnb, and that way you can put your child to bed in a different room and you can stay up. Your child's bedtime is not everyone's bedtime. And I just wonder, I brought this up on a podcast before, but it feels like there's an opportunity for them to spend marketing dollars, kind of fluffing up the industry as a whole, instead of just trying to rent out these rooms. I feel like there's a space for them to help, because I can't help but think, let's say we go into this election in the fall and EB is super popular and he just wins like crazy because of what happened. It's just going to go right across the whole province. I feel like this is just not going to stop. And I feel like there is an opportunity for the big company to kind of come in and help with the PR campaign. Sell it to the public why these are good for our community, right? And I kind of feel like they're missing the mark right there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or if you reach out to them for help with that.
It's a very convoluted situation. I totally agree with you, and that's a big argument from the beginning of this: is where's Airbnb? Why are they not helping us? Where's VRBO? So there's a couple different things, and I can speak to both of them pretty well. I've had great conversations with Airbnb. This is coming back from that Unified Message Association. I reached out to their policy team immediately on LinkedIn. I identified myself as not president at the time, but a director of an association. And
follow up.
I got a response.
With the promotion.
Follow up, And so from that, we have a good line of communication there to get understanding of, where their position is. They're a publicly traded company, right? Their position is profits, unfortunately. They are the corporate entity. They have the target on their back. We've been kind of roped in as guilty by association with them. Their marketing dollars, I think, will always continue to be, about promoting Airbnb as a whole and how good Airbnb is over their competitor, right? And same with VRBO, right? Cat and mouse back and forth situation. How they've offered, the communications that we have is, I don't know if we saw their economic report that they put out a couple of weeks ago, right? Talking about the economic benefits and impact to BC. Those are conversations that we've had with them of this type of stuff is what needs to be put out. But it kind of gets landed on deaf ears because nobody wants to read never ending data about how many jobs there are, how much money there is, and da-da-da. They want sound bites. They want video clips. We have attention spans shorter than a goldfish these days, right? So, and those little soft, cute commercials that are on YouTube are exactly what catch people. But I think they are making enemies as well, unfortunately.
Why couldn't you make a commercial that says, Sally's sick and she had nowhere to stay and she wanted to stay in an Airbnb right beside the hospital in Cologne. You could make that commercial pull on heartstrings and pull on dollars, right? Like, I don't understand why that's not a thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Matt. And you know what? Topic of discussion for my next meeting with them. I think the hotel one, that is their way of like trying to fight the hotel industry a bit, which, public facing is a spark of, well, yeah, I don't want to go to bed with my kids. Like, of course, that doesn't make sense. Or I don't want to go in a group with the three of us or four of us and we all got to stay in separate rooms, right? Because, we want to be in a house or something like that. But I think they have tons of room for improvement. Publicly traded company. I ask a lot of questions in those meetings and I get certain responses.
From the hotel side, like, I know we hear a little bit of speculation in the background, but like, is the hotel industry driving some of this campaign a little bit? Like, I think there was a rumor that they were funding the McGill report that came out that kind of was the catalyst for a lot of this. Are you guys kind of battling the hotel industry as well for this? Like, where are you with that?
We are 100% battling our competitors, right? This is a customer segment that is very desired, right? Short-term rental folks, guests, we just talked about this, right? Like staying in a bigger place, more people splitting it up. And the hotel industry, without a doubt, funded the McGill study, which technically actually wasn't a McGill study. We've done a great report on this. It was just a gun for hire, a professor from the McGill University, David Washmith, that was paid by the BC Hotel Association to do this economic impact report on housing. We reached out to McGill asking for information, and they sent an email back saying, we received no money from this. And this was, created by an independent contractor, a professor of theirs, right? So, but they've asked to pull their branding and logo off of it, right? Because the branding was on it and it was touted as the McGill study, which is, Canada's renowned university. So
interesting.
The Harvard of Canada. Right? So we are toe to toe with the Hotel Association. Yes. If you go back, if you look at lobbying registers from the last, couple of years, you will see the president of the Hotel Association meeting with Ravi Kalan over and over and over again, right? Discussing housing. And, you got to wonder, what is the intent there that the hotel is talking about housing with the housing minister?
Yeah. I mean, there would be like an outcry if they all of a sudden forced legislation on hotels that they had to convert all of their units into like long-term accommodation. It's essentially the same thing of, we have these purpose-built Airbnb short-term rental type places and we're being forced to change the use of it. It'd be the same if they did that to the hotel industry.
Yeah. And the wild thing is, here's our argument, right? So the premier got up in a press release on April 18th and said, we are building more hotels in Vancouver to fill the demand. And without this legislation, those hotel developers would not have moved on buying these lands and building these buildings, right? So a couple of arguments to unpack there are, why are we wasting resources for construction on more hotel building? Why are developers not being incentivized to build more housing? And if you build a hotel, the hotel is zero housing. And if you build an apartment building, the apartment building could be mixed use of short-term rentals, stroke a hotel offering, principal residence, owner-occupied properties, and of course there could be sort of support in there as well. So, a hotel offers zero long-term housing options. You nailed it there. It's like, if the hotels were forced to convert to long-term, well, they couldn't, because they would need extensive renovations to do it, because all hotels are built with a bed and a room and an end table and some bad coffee.
Yeah. Have you guys thought about like kind of outside the box ideas? Like, for example, only short-term you place in July and August. You can't do it from September till June. It's like for a place like Kelowna, and I'm thinking Victoria, I think something like that would work, because we have university town. The Airbnbs make most of their money in the summer anyway. Have you thought about that at all?
The simple answer to that is municipalities liberating the principal residence cap in those areas. So like Playa Sol, well, they're not all principal residents. Some of those folks don't live there. It's their second property. But I think alluding or leading into that, a first step would be having municipalities come in line with the liberation of, you can rent out your place for the days that you don't occupy it, right? So 6 months you're working away, maybe in the winters for snowbirds that go down to Arizona, they can rent out their place short term in the winters. That doesn't always work for all of it. It wouldn't be a blanket. I mean, I know you're trying to do is put it just on tourism, but there's a need for that alternate accommodation all year, right? Like you said with the medical. I mean, I have people here that are travel nurses, and I also have people that are cancer patients, right? That are here for cancer treatment. And so those contracts and those doctor's dates, they come at random any time of year.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think just having the opportunity or flexibility to do it in a 6-month period would be great. That would be a big step forward. How's that? At least at the municipality level, right?
Yeah. I mean, one thing is last year, obviously, we had some pretty severe fires in the Okanagan, displaced lots of families, but, over 100 structures were lost. It would have been incredibly bad timing if they implemented this legislation last year, this time, because where does everyone go that lost their home? I still know people that are not back in their home right now, and they're staying in this, Airbnb, but since they've been there for like 100 some odd days, technically it's okay. But if that were ever to happen again, there's no option.
No, and we just saw that the BC Hotel Association has worked with the provincial government to create a new emergency evacuees portal. And I believe Kelowna and Dicton and Prince George, don't quote me, but 3 cities that have had recent, very devastating fires are on the list for that. So instead of, thinking about all of the accommodations that could be utilized for people, because let's be honest, we're in an emergency, right? Like, why are we segmenting out areas that can't be used? They're trying to funnel them into a hotel. I think about my family of 4 with a dog. If I lost my house and I had to go live in a hotel room with 2 beds for the next, how long did you say your friend was there? 100 odd days?
She just moved back in, I think, yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many breakfasts my kids would want to eat out of coffee mugs, because let's be honest, you're not going to have the facilities. It just wouldn't work. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So,
hey, if it's a service-based industry and you're not competitive, you're just not going to survive. So I feel like hotels, if they want to compete, they really need to up their game, if that's the case.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll see it. I mean, I think you guys just had a development application come in for the Ramada or something that's downtown, right? And
we talked about that.
Right in the application, it mentions fill the void of the short-term rentals. And I think they're planning to build suites in that building.
They are, yeah.
So conveniently came out, right as this legislation was coming in.
Yeah.
The writing is on the wall. It's hard to talk about scandal and tinfoil hat stuff and, present that out to the everyday public. I think the more important thing is just talking about the impact that people will feel from this, not just from a stakeholder, but, from a guest, right, as well, trying to figure out where they're going to go. And just reminding people that, you're not staying local anymore when you're off staying in a hotel. Your money is being funneled out into the nether of public trading and some sort of corporate entity that's probably overseas, right?
Well, we should get to our wrap-up questions, and this is kind of a funny one to start with. If you could buy one property in the Okanagan in the next 12 months, what would it be?
I think a Malibu wake center. Is that qualifying as a pontoon boat, maybe? At least I can use it and rent it out.
That's a good answer.
I love the Okanagan. How about, a place up in Big White would be nice, right? Because they're exempt, I believe. So
that's true.
For now, fingers crossed.
Yeah, for now, right? You have exemptions. Exemptions should be considered for other areas.
Yeah.
All right. If you could tell your 20-year-old self any piece of advice, what would you tell yourself?
That's always the magic question. I got into trouble lots when I was a kid, but I was smart and I saved some money and bought real estate in my mid-20s. If I was 20, what would I tell myself? Don't mess up your driver's license.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Don't drink and drive. Be smart.
Yeah, that is quality advice, dude. Yeah.
Because that will haunt you for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite charity, or how do you give back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have a specific charity that I contribute to, but I consider my time valuable and, what my ups and downs that I've learned in life. And so just giving time to people to have a conversation, especially younger generations, right? When I meet people that are, 5 or 10 years younger than me or a 20-year-old, right? And just having some smart conversation with them and just giving them a moment or even letting them, give them your number and feel free to reach out anytime. And so I guess my charity would just be my time. And that doesn't mean for younger, even older folks, you see someone that just needs help and just help them across the street. I know that's a cliche of an older, but even just talking to senior citizens and just whatever, giving some business advice to someone that's not doing so well or lending somebody a bit of money, I think there's just so many ways to give back, and people underestimate what they can do just with 15 minutes to an hour of their time, a day or a couple of days.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. How can Taylor or I or our listener help you? What do you want us to do? Is there anything they should be doing?
Yeah. I mean, right now we've got 2 entities going on. We've got the Property Rights Association of BC. You can head over to that website. learn about our association. You can sign up for a membership there if you feel that you want to kind of contribute to this and get involved financially. We're trying to be, forging the path and a pioneer with an association that's really looking out for, people that care about their property rights in BC. And that's what we're fighting for on one aspect. Short-term rentals is a focus today, but we could be talking about something different tomorrow. We've also created a public campaign or a public facing entity called the BC Short-Term Rental Association. This is what I was talking about before. Go over to bcstra.ca and just check that out. And that's just our, trying to change the narrative and educate people on why short-term rentals are important and just kind of promote the industry and be an advocate, for the industry across the province.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for your time. And thank you so much for what you're doing. Because I'm glad you're fighting this battle. I would not be the perfect person to do it. I'd be kicking and screaming the whole way and it doesn't get things done. So
it has ups and downs, right? It's very emotional for a lot of people. I think, if I could tell anybody anything, like finances and real estate and, when times get tough, it's hard on your family, it's hard on your loved ones. And, try and just remember that like the sun is shining and try and stay positive about it. And remember, real estate should have a long horizon, right? Like
very much.
You should be investing for 2, 5, 10-year plans and able to accommodate ups and downs in between, right?
For sure.
Agreed. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Yeah, no worries.
Have a good one.